Welcome back, everybody, to Fans Talk TNA. This is episode 59. My name is Nick, and with us tonight is Garvin. Say howdy, Garvin.
Howdy, Garvin.
And this is a special episode because not only are we coming off of a 2-week hiatus, we are covering the premiere episode of Impact on Pop, and we got folks in the live chat with us. Live chat, you can't say hi. I'm sorry. We can't do that. So before we get started, just want to say we're backed by our Patreon subscribers, the Squared Circle of Trust, and everybody is subscribing to that because, at least on some level, they enjoy the stuff that we're doing. So if you're enjoying the stuff that we're doing and you want to help be a part of that, help support it, you can join our little family by chipping in just $1 a month over on Patreon. With that pledge, you can help us cover the costs of recording, hosting, and distributing all of our episodes. You can get the entire archive for Fans Talk TNA, as well as other series that the Fans Talk family does, and some other fun perks besides. So head on over to fanstalktna.com right now and find out more. So Garvin, like I said, this week we saw the debut of Impact on Pop TV. Overall, before we get into the nitty-gritty stuff, what did you think of this?
Well, I mean, it was really hyped. It felt like there was a lot of conversation, a lot of excitement happening about TNA's return to TV. And so we got word there was going to be a new theme song. We got word there was going to be some more changes. And it was going to, be a huge starting point for TNA. In some respect, it was. I mean, we saw some returns. We saw some teaming up that I don't think a lot of people expected. But the theme song, I thought, was really slow and uninspiring. Like, if we compare the new theme song to what we had before, like what we had before didn't necessarily fit, a wrestling vibe, but it was fast paced. Like we used that for Fans Talk TNA, and it really seemed to have like those good moments. I'm trying to think of what that term is called, but the hooks. It had those good hooks, and the new theme song, while it was written by Billy Corgan, was definitely not. It just didn't fit. It just felt really lame almost.
Yeah, I could kind of get it if it was just, this is new, this is the first time ever, we're doing something special, and we're gonna try and make it feel special with this ponderous, classical, almost movie soundtrack type theme. But if this is what we're gonna be getting week in and week out, yeah, I agree with you. It is kind of underwhelming. It's not really something that gets you in the mood to see two dudes in trunks fight in the ring.
Yeah.
On the whole, yeah, I'm with you. The hype was enormous. It was huge. And that made me a little nervous because TNA doesn't have the best track record with that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. August 1 warning, case in point. We thought it was supposed to be something amazing, and it was Tito Ortiz. And that went absolutely nowhere. And I was feeling a little bit of trepidation when they started hyping up the Miracle. So overall, I think it turned out better than I was afraid it would. And I think it lived up to at least some of the hype. The Miracle actually turned out to be kind of neat, kind of awesome in my opinion.
Yeah.
We can get into that a little bit later. But overall, I think this is a good debut. I think from what I hear, it did pretty well ratings-wise. And all the talk online seemed to be fairly positive.
Yeah, I think just going over like the different segments that we had, it really did feel like it was almost a reintroduction to, a few different feuds, a few different characters. So, while it did seem like every single in-ring segment outside of the Miracle had these constant interruptions and ended up in brawls and whatnot, you have to keep in mind that it wasn't just a debut on a new network and it was the same old TNA audience that was coming over for it, but it did have that potential to reach a new audience. I mean, theoretically, and I'm pulling this percentage from Reddit, so who knows? But I think it was like Pop TV, reaches about 20% more homes than Destination America did. So, theoretically, there would be some changeover, some new people coming in and to be introduced to, some of the guys like Eli Drake, Jesse Goddard's, that sort of thing. So while there were, a running theme of constant interruptions and brawls and whatnot, I think it did give a lot of different people the spotlight without, detracting from the overall show.
Absolutely. And I think that chaotic nature of it, just the feeling that anything could happen with people running in and people returning and people debuting, it really does seem like it's geared towards those new audience members that may be familiar with Impact, maybe not, but just a way to grab them with returns with big deals like Beer Money reuniting and I guess big wrestling names, at least relatively big, depending on what you watch, making their appearances. Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from with that. It's kind of a just throw things at the wall and see what sticks kind of approach. And that's not entirely bad.
No, I mean...
So I guess...
Just to clarify, I mean, we had 5 matches.
Mm-hmm.
So we had 5 matches, but it did seem like there was a lot of different things that happened, a lot of different people that were featured that generally on a TNA show or even a wrestling show in general wouldn't have that same opportunity. So despite them kind of throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall, I think it was a good opportunity for a lot of different people.
For sure. Okay, so everybody knows that this was the week that the World Title Series is going to wrap up. We were going to crown our new world champion, and things kicked off with that. Dixie Carter gave sort of a recap and a reintroduction to everybody, and as you mentioned before, a big brawl kicked off the show. So, we had Lashley versus EC3. Shenanigans ensued, and EC3 won with a little help from Tyrus. And later on in the show, we had Matt Hardy versus Eric Young. In, I guess, predictable fashion, Matt Hardy went on. So we wound up getting, again, a running theme here of Matt Hardy versus EC3. It all came full circle. And, yeah, EC3 won. Which, given the choices that we had available to us, I think that was probably the best we could have hoped for.
I don't disagree with that statement. I mean, given the 4 that we had in the finals, I'm very pleased with the idea that EC3 is still your TNA World Heavyweight Champion. I guess from a TNA fan standpoint, it does bug me a little bit that, the last 2 months were filler, basically. Like, we're basically where we were before this tournament started. So, like, what did we really gain? Like, what new story has been told that, qualifies this whole thing? Like, why did we as TNA fans sit through this only to get what we had before? I guess that's what I'm mostly troubled with. But at the end of the day, like, EC3 going over Lashley, I thought that was a good match. I thought that was a good move. Hardy going over EY, I'm really torn about, because, like, I suppose I understand why TNA went with that, but from a fantasy booking standpoint, like, how have we not seen really like an EC3 versus EY feud? It's heel versus heel, but still, that would be a quality feud, a quality matchup between those two.
Yeah, if you're going to have a heel versus heel match again with EC3 as one half of it, there's no better candidate than the EY. He's unhinged enough that you can easily see him going after anybody, regardless of reason, or if there's a reason at all. Like he's been ranting about backstage, everybody's against him. It's all a conspiracy against him, and the next person that gets in his way is gonna get it. So you very easily could have pointed EY EC3 and just let him loose. But yeah, like I said, it was predictable, and I'm totally with you. I'm still kind of salty that the World Title Series really didn't amount to a whole lot. In fact, we kind of lost something when you look back before Bound for Glory, because at least then we had some fresh blood in the mix with Drew Galloway.
Mm-hmm.
Galloway got eliminated early, and so the least established person in the Final Four was the guy who's been on an undefeated streak since his debut and had already been champion. So that upset me. I've had a little bit of time to calm down since then, but it still bugs me. But, you know, what's done is done. We can only look forward from here. EC3 should be so much more pompous, so much more insufferable now, and he's going to carry that incredibly well, and it's just going to make it that much more satisfying when somebody does come up and knock him down in the dirt and take away the title.
Right.
Hopefully that won't be a Hardy.
Yeah, and so right, exactly. I hope this is the end of Matt Hardy as a challenger in the world title race. I don't necessarily dislike Hardy, but I just don't want to see him as the main focal point, as the main thorn in the heel side. And I don't know what you do with him to make it better. I think it's just a matter of, it feels like they really wanted Jeff Hardy in that role. Jeff's hurt, so let's throw Matt Hardy in there. And to me, Matt Hardy is a really poor replacement for Jeff. And like you mentioned, they had the opportunity to push some new blood in there, to push some new guys in there. Drew Galloway being eliminated as early as he did, there's definitely something wrong with that, especially with how hard they pushed him. So, but yeah, I think overall Hardy needs to be eliminated from that mix. But I really hope moving forward, we've got Drew there, we've got EY there. EY was pretty much involved in everything this week. I want to say he made 6 or 7 different appearances, either in ring or backstage, and yeah, I really think they made EY a huge focal point, and I hope that means good things for EY.
Yeah, and it should be noted that there's always tires lurking in the background. Correct. Since he won that Bound for Gold tournament, I think it was. So EC3 always has to look over his shoulder for just on the off chance that Tyrus sees a weak point in opening and decides to challenge. As far as Matt goes, I'm wondering if they will decide to turn him heel. Just given his reaction afterward, him shaking off his wife who was carrying his baby.
Yeah.
And just a look of disdain and disgust and anger on his face. It makes me wonder if they might turn him on Jeff. Jeff has been hurt for a while, but it's about time. If I remember how long he was supposed to be out correctly, it's about time for him to start making appearances again and maybe getting back in the ring. So I'm wondering if maybe Matt will turn on Jeff.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. I much prefer the heel Hardy, and heel Matt Hardy. And when Matt Hardy was in ROH, again, I'm not a big ROH guy. I rarely watch anything, but he was very vocal over social media and was posting videos of him doing cutting promos or just doing like backstage style segments against the internet or against whoever his opponent was. But he was posting that stuff, and it was really good. It was quality, and it was him as a heel. Something we saw, in his last run with WWE before he left. And that kind of stuff is good to me. I would much prefer Matt Hardy being heel. The problem, though, is when you look at the title race, if we kept the same people, but we made Matt Hardy heel, who is your face? Lashley? Lashley's the only face, and then you got EY and EC3 and a heel Matt Hardy. Tyrus is still like your tweener, but mostly a heel because of his relationship with EC3. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't really see Tyrus being a face.
I think he's got it in him, and I think it would make sense given what he's been doing outside of TNA, just the media appearances he's had. He's been on Fox, so that automatically should make him a cutthroat heel. But I can see him being cast more as a face, not as babyface as the Funkasaurus Brodus Clay.
Hopefully,
but yeah, hopefully not. that left him with some traumatic experiences. He can't look at a disco ball. But yeah, against EC3, it would be really easy to cast him as a sympathetic figure, always putting up with EC3's garbage, always having to take the bullet for him whenever it comes to somebody getting pissed off at EC3. With Matt, though, just looking away from the title race, assuming that he is done with it for a while, and you talking about his time in ROH, that makes me wonder if maybe he won't set his sights on the Miracle Mike Bennett. Because after Matt Hardy got through with Scum over in ROH, he kind of took Mike Bennett under his wing a little bit, and those two and Maria became sort of not quite a faction, but kind of a unit. And the way Mike kind of poo-pooed Matt, calling him old and whatnot, maybe that's a potential feud.
Yeah. But it does seem like TNA is pretty heavy on the traditional heel roles. I mean, just thinking about who is a face right now, we've got Lashley, we've got Kurt Angle, we've got Drew Galloway, and maybe I'm missing someone, but overall, like everyone else that was on the show, as far as the male wrestler side, well, Beer Money, I guess, would be theoretically, your faces, or at least crowd favorites. But they're not necessarily in that world title race, or they're not necessarily, in the focus that Matt Hardy or Mike Bennett would be, or EC3 or EY, or anyone else. Jesse Goddard's, Eli Drake. I mean, it does seem like there's a heavier focus on the more traditional heel roles.
Yeah, it definitely does. I don't necessarily know that I would group Eli Drake and Jesse Goddard in there right now, given that they do seem to be forming a tag team. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There is a huge focus on the heels right now. There are a number of guys that weren't really featured on this week's show.
True. Like Spud.
Mahabali Shira, I guess you could count. Yeah, Rockstar Spud. Some of the other X Division guys like Tigre Uno, who, yeah, he is the X Division champ. Had to think about that.
Yeah, the Wolves were in that one backstage segment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I imagine we're going to be cycling through that as the weeks go by, and who knows, we might be seeing more debuts. With Mike Bennett coming, this does seem like a prime time for maybe Billy Corgan's vision of roster changes coming into play. He kept talking about how he's got 7, 8, a dozen guys just ready to go for TV. That you just need to pull the trigger. And it didn't seem to go anywhere, but maybe now with all the changes that have been going through, you've got ringside commentary now. You've got a different kind of less produced, more anything goes kind of atmosphere going on. Maybe we will see those additions to the roster. So we mentioned Beer Money a little bit earlier, and I mean, wow, that's a big deal to me, just given how thin the tag team roster has been. And I kind of like the way they pulled that off as well. You had Bobby Roode issuing an open challenge for the King of the Mountain Championship. And it seemed like that was going to be a point where Mike Bennett would enter in because he extended the offer to any promotion, and it heavily emphasized any promotion. But now you've got kind of a feud with Beer Money going up against Eric Young and Bram. And EY and Bram seems like a very natural tag team to me right now with the similarity in gimmicks. So
Agreed.
That should be a lot of fun.
Agreed. Yeah, and I know there is some backlash, I guess, whether it's Reddit or on the Facebook group or anything like that, about James Storm coming back to TNA from NXT. But really, James Storm coming back, I think, is a good thing. He just really wasn't a good fit in NXT. I think we had... He just really wasn't a good fit in NXT. He just seemed like, I don't know, it was almost disappointing. Like they weren't necessarily pushing him in a role that I think a lot of us hoped for. But him in TNA is a good thing. And I also thought it was kind of interesting how he almost broke kayfabe a little bit, talking about the last time he was in TNA and that really wasn't him and that wasn't his character or who he is, as a person, in relationship with the whole Revolution thing. So him totally tossing that aside and restarting Beer Money, I think, like you said, because of the tag team division is so shallow at this point, I think that's a really cool thing. And EY and Bram tagging up as well, I think, is a really good thing. And I hope that does continue. I guess my only concern here is that, we are focusing in on the tag team division, but we really haven't defined what the King of the Mountain Championship is yet.
Yeah, it's a weird spot that Beer Money's in because one half of the team is holding a singles title. And you would think that would forecast that Rude is going to lose that belt at some point soon. But I don't know. I would be kind of interested in seeing him hold on to that for a while and maybe having Beer Money go after the tag team titles. On the one hand, that could be just very straightforward. It could be another kind of Hardy Boys versus the Wolves versus Team 3D, just where they give the Wolves the rub. At this point, I don't think the Wolves really need it, just because they have beaten almost every other legendary tag team TNA's had. But it would still make for a great series of matches.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm completely with you with James Storm returning. When he was in NXT, I agree that was kind of lackluster. I wasn't exactly okay with it, but I accepted it just because the rumor was going around that Storm wasn't there to be a wrestler, but to be a trainer. So that made a lot of sense to me. But, the rumors going around that TNA just threw money at him until he agreed to step away from WWE and sign with them again. But, if this is what we're going to get out of it, if we're going to get kind of a return to form for the Cowboy James Storm, then I'm completely okay with that.
Yeah, I guess it depends on where they're going. And again, the live chat is talking about, how James Storm Bobby Roode could be, a dual champion. And I agree with that, but still, I would like to define what the King of the Mountain Championship really is. Is it your second tier title? Is it important? And if so, I don't want that wrapped up in something entirely different. It's like having Tigre Uno doing as well as he did in the world title race in that tournament. Like I don't want the X Division Championship wrapped up in a title in a completely different title race. I want some separation, some isolation. And to me, fantasy booking wise, I would love for this to eventually, within the next month or two, lead to a James Storm versus Bobby Roode feud for the King of the Mountain Championship.
I don't necessarily know if I want Storm versus Roode. On the one hand, if they want to shoot for a resolution of that feud that they had a few years back, the ground is certainly fertile there. I think having a resolution would be nice, but I think I'm much more interested in seeing where they go as a tag team. I want this to be more than just a nostalgia run that lasts for a few weeks. And I am definitely with you as far as not wanting the King of the Mountain title to be forgotten the way the X Division title is whenever it comes time for Destination X and Option C, or like it was with the World Title Series where there was no action going on in the X Division. But I think there are ways to have a King of the Mountain angle and a tag team title angle run kind of in tandem and have them be their own things. I don't know if I could book one right now off the top of my head, but I'm sure it's there. I think with the creative side that they have going on there with Dave Lagana and Matt Conway, and, you know, I've heard good things about Billy Corgan as well. I don't know exactly what he would bring to the table there, but, you know, you got some creative minds there. I think they could work something out if they handled it really well.
Agreed.
So on the knockout side of things, I don't know. Well, let's just recap what actually happened. We had the Beautiful People versus the Dollhouse, as was advertised. But obviously Angelina Love can't compete because she's 7 months pregnant. So Gail Kim jumped in on the side of the Beautiful People, and they won. And out comes Awesome Kong. And I guess, as a surprise, she kind of wrecks the Beautiful People. So now she and the Dollhouse are aligned. On the one hand, it's kind of out of left field for me, but in retrospect, it makes a lot of sense. Taryn Terrell is no longer with TNA. So, for one thing, the beef that Awesome Kong had with the Dollhouse is gone now. Taryn brought in the Dollhouse to fight Kong, and now that Taryn's no longer there, Kong doesn't have a reason to go after the Dollhouse. And secondly, Rebel walked out like she was the leader of the Dollhouse, and that bothers me a lot.
Yeah.
Just because Rebel is not, she's not there yet. Definitely not in a place where she should be the leader ahead of Jade. So having Kong there just as, I don't know if she'll be the leader, but she will definitely be the veteran and she'll be able to lend some legitimacy to this group now that Taryn's gone. So I do enjoy that part of it.
I'm with you. I was really confused with with Rebel's role. I mean, it did seem that it did seem like that she was the leader. And, you know, the look wise, how she came down to the ring and the hat that she was wearing, I mean, it looked really cool. But, you know, if they are bringing Awesome Kong into that, like, why isn't Awesome Kong the leader? You know? Like, that's who I would put there. Rebel for sure is not quality enough to lead a team, especially a team that is Marty Bell and Jade. I mean, they are good wrestlers. Rebel is not. Now, could she be mostly a talking role and be the leader? I would be into that.
Yeah, Rebel as a figurehead kind of makes sense, just given ever since she joined up with that faction. Taryn did treat her as kind of her protege, I guess the word would be. So in the line of succession, I guess it kind of makes sense. We haven't heard Rebel talk enough, I don't think, to really get an accurate beat on things. I think she did okay in what she was doing with the menagerie whenever she was talking, but since then, talking points have been few and far between. But if she's just treated as a figurehead, then I think that's entirely fair. And I think she is coming along as a wrestler. Before the hiatus, she wasn't really bringing a whole lot to the table, but now there's a little bit more to her offense. Like when she initially tagged into this match, and she had that weird, not a camo clutch, but with Madison trying to go for the body scissors earlier, and she kept that on, and she had the finger slice under the chin. That was interesting. I've never seen that before, and it's a little bit of a stretch from a logistical perspective, but it's interesting. It's novel. So I'm glad we're seeing a little bit of experimentation there. So I definitely think there's something there to be improved upon, and maybe eventually there could be some legitimacy to the idea that she is the leader. But right now, you definitely need somebody with Kong's experience and credibility.
Yeah, but as far as that look, I thought her look was very good in that ring entrance. The hat, the way, her facial expressions were working, the overall dress in general. I thought it did add a nice vibe to it. But yeah, again, her wrestling ability does not equal Taryn's whatsoever. And, from a veteran standpoint, yeah, you would want someone in there like Kong. But at the same time, Kong doesn't talk, So can Kong, from a kayfabe standpoint, lead a group? Or is she just that bodyguard type role in this?
Yeah, that's definitely something to consider. There was one point during the World Title Series where Kong actually did cut a promo. It was during the Round of 32 where, everybody in the group kind of sat around JB and gave their piece. Kong was very prophetic almost in the promo that she gave. The seas will run red with blood. The streets will run. And it was impressive just because that's rare for her. And I've heard her on podcasts like The Art of Wrestling where she actually talks a lot. And it makes me think that she can be a talker. But yeah, that is a very interesting angle to consider. Kind of almost harking back to the days when Raisha Saeed was her spokesperson, was her mouthpiece. I wonder if they would do that with Rebel.
Yeah, and just think again, I don't want to always cross over to the comparison to WWE, but look at DX when they brought in China. China didn't really talk a whole lot. She was basically there to beat up people and to be that strong force behind them, almost like the straight guy with the jokers around them, kind of thing. So in that sense, I think that's a good role for Awesome Kong. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's where I would book it, but eventually you would like to see Kong talk more. You would like to see her evolve her character. But, at the same time, TNA, they just cannot get over the Gail Kim versus Kong feud. So who knows? Who knows if it will ever really evolve.
Yep, it remains to be seen. I guess the only thing left that we haven't talked about yet is the Angle retirement tour and all of the events attached to that. Like when Angle was talking about who he was going to wrestle next week, and he said that was going to be Drew Galloway. And out comes Jesse Goddard and Eli Drake. Just barking at their heels. And it was interesting to kind of consider all the various directions you could go with that. Whether Jesse and Eli would fight with Drew to get that match with Angle, or what we eventually did get, which was a tag team match between those two teams and the Wolves. So, again, like I said earlier, it looks like Goddard and Drake might put aside their differences and form a team. Kind of like Robbie E and Goddard did to form the Bromans. So, do you think that's what they're going to do with it? Do you think we're going to get a permanent tag team out of those two? Or will they end up being at each other's throats?
No, I don't see it being a permanent tag team, and I really hope that that's not the plan. I think overall, looking back at the tournament, Eli Drake, Jesse Goddard's, they were in that, the future division or whatever you want to call it, the bracket or I don't know, group. There we go. It was the future group,
right?
And so them clinging on to that and saying, if Angle is talking about the future, he needs to include those two. I think that was a good move for both of them. And just again going on that idea that this is a reintroduction to them as well as an introduction to the new audience that is coming. I think was a really cool thing. So no, I hope it's not a permanent tag team, or at least a temporarily 6-month long team. I want to see those two guys competing against each other and competing for a title, whether that's the King of the Mountain Championship or even in the world title race. I think they both have a future, really.
Mm-hmm, for sure. What about Angle's side of things? We know that in the main event, or we were going to see Galloway versus Angle, and now it's a tag team match. Do you think we will eventually get Galloway versus Angle, or even more matches like that? Like, I've seen a lot of people clamoring for Davey Richards and Angle to have a match. How many of those do you think we get out of
it's
this?
strange. I was having a hard time really deciphering what Angle was saying about this whole retirement tour. Like, is this just like one match, 2 matches, a few matches, or is this going to be an ongoing thing for the rest of 2016?
It sounded like he was talking about having a series of matches with TNA's best and brightest, I think was the general gist of what he was getting at. It was kind of confusing, just the way he had to keep going around the crowd with the thank you Angle chants of one more match and all the interruptions he had to deal with. But I do think that we are going to be seeing at least a few matches. Maybe with Galloway. I really think Davey is going to be one of those guys, just how hard they've been pushing for it on social media. So I guess that about does it for this week on Impact. I guess we could get into more on the Miracle. We kind of hinted at that in relation to other things, but overall, what did you think about that segment? Did you enjoy it? Do you think Mike Bennett is a good addition to TNA?
This is hard for me to answer because I don't have that experience with him in ROH, so I don't really have that history with him. However, the promo that he put out, I thought was very good. His entrance was very good. It did make me intrigued about what he can do. So overall, I thought it was a quality introduction to the character. Maria, obviously, I do have some experience with her run in WWE, and the random clips I do see from ROH, through my internet watching. But yeah, I think overall, I'm excited about where this can go. It does seem like TNA, despite the fact that they are continually pushing Lashley and Matt Hardy in your world title race, that they do have a really good core of solid workers, solid people on the mic. Eli Drake, Mike Bennett, so on and so forth. So I think overall it is a good addition as long as TNA continues to push him as they have thus far.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. If he's used properly, he's going to do amazing things. I can see him slotting into the upper mid card very easily, and it would take a little bit of work just to kind of push up against the more established guys, like you mentioned, like Lashley, like Matt Hardy, and some of the other originals that are up there as well, like Rude, like EY. But yeah, I think he's going to do very well for himself. He's a lot better at talking than I remember. I don't really watch ROH a ton, and from what I have seen, he's always been passable on the mic, but his promo ability has come a long way since I last recall. And I haven't seen a ton of his work in ROH. I'm familiar with his Piledriver feud with Kevin Steen, a little bit from his separation with Brutal Bob Evans, the work he's done with Matt Hardy, and more recently, the stuff he's done in New Japan as part of a tag team. So wrestling ability is not in question. He's going to put on some great matches with whoever he's working with. But yeah, overall, I'm impressed at the way he's coming to TNA, that they're treating him like what he is, an up-and-comer in the business. And yeah, I think there's good things ahead for him. And Maria presents an interesting wrinkle as well. I think she could prove to be a good manager. I don't necessarily know if she would wrestle. She does spots here and there on the indies, but it's infrequent enough that I wonder if they would use her in that capacity. I think the Knockouts division could certainly use it, just given how Stale's a little strong, but just how established everything's gotten. It for a long time now, it's been Dollhouse versus Beautiful People and not much else. So any way you could shake that up would be ideal, I think.
Agreed. And real quick, before we move on, I want everyone to be aware of this. You can get full episodes from poptv.com. It does seem like that's going to be what they're going to be doing moving forward. I really hope that's the case, because that makes it a lot easier for those of us who don't have Pop TV in our subscription for whatever reason, as far as from our cable providers. So that's a great source. If they do put up episodes next day, that's fantastic for TNA. So I hope that continues.
Absolutely. Spike used to do that with their episodes, except I don't think it was next day. It was like a few days or a week after. But I really missed that, being able to go back to the home website and be able to watch episodes there, rather than, if I miss it, hope to have DVR'd it or just have to find it somewhere else. So yeah, that's definitely a great resource if you're hard up on Pop TV in that way. So for realsies this time, I think that about does it for this week's Impact. Next week we don't really know what's coming next. I assume we're going to get some grand celebration of EC3's victory and a little more clarity on who's going to be next in that title picture.
Angle versus Drew in the main event.
That is true. We've got that. The singles match next week. I was thinking of this week, this Friday, we do have the live one night only, where the main event is going to be a triple threat tag team match with Galloway and Angle teaming up against Eli Drake and Jesse Goddard and against the Wolves. Rounding out the rest of the card, and we are going to do predictions.
Yeah, and real quick, because I needed this clarified for me like 5 or 6 times before I believed it. But realistically, this is a live pay-per-view. Normally, you can go ahead and skip one night onlys because they aren't storyline driven. They aren't. They have no impact whatsoever in what TNA is doing from week to week. But this time it is different. So definitely, if you were considering skipping it because of the one night only label, I don't think we can. I think we have to watch this.
Yeah, it does look like this is going to be one thing that they're changing. They are going to be incorporating it into storylines. And I do know that you can get this through the Flips app. If you guys watched Wrestle Kingdom 9 last year, that's how they went through it. They went through the Flips app. So if you're familiar with that at all, that'll make it easy for you. If not, the Flips app is fairly straightforward. But there are 5 matches on the card right now. There is a 6th. Mike Bennett is going to be wrestling, but his opponent is to be announced. So I don't think we'll do predictions on that one. It seems kind of straightforward that Bennett would win his debut match.
I think so. I think you're right.
Okay, so first match on the card, at least as far as Wikipedia is concerned, we are going to have Beer Money versus Bram and Eric Young. This also seems like a slam dunk. I would be really surprised if Beer Money lost their first match back together as a tag team against Bram and EY. I don't know. I guess we could be surprised. What do you think?
No, this is Beer Money all the way. There's no way you return with those, like with that team, with the history that it had, and not have them win. I mean, yes, I am excited about a future that includes Bram and EY as a tag team, as a real tag team that's going to stick there for the foreseeable future in that division. But, beer money wins.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I hope that's not the end of Bram and EY, like you said. I hope they find some way to extend that out at least a little bit longer. It does seem like a clean finish without any post-match shenanigans would be the order of the day here. Next match on the card, Lashley versus Tyrus. This one, I think it's a little less clear about who would be the victor, simply given how much of a pedestal they want to keep Lashley on. However, I don't think it'll be a squash match in Lashley's favor, simply given the fact that Tyrus is sort of in a Mr. Money in the Bank situation here, without all the baggage of, they always lose that comes attached with being Mr. Money in the Bank. At some point, Tyrus is going to challenge for the world title, so it makes me think that he might win, just to kind of keep him in the conversation.
Yeah, they did allude to the idea of that split between EC3 and Tyrus at the very beginning of the main event this week. So, Jeff Hardy said that he wouldn't be at ringside, so Tyrus should do the same thing. And without hesitation, Tyrus was like, all right, and then left. And you could see in the facial reaction of EC3 that he was not expecting that. So I definitely think this is your opportunity to start building some real credibility with Tyrus. I can't imagine it's going to be a squash match. I don't know. I mean, it does seem like they still want Lashley in that title picture, but at this point, if you're going to start building up that potential matchup between EC3 and Tyrus needs this win.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me. Third match on the card, Aiden O'Shea versus Mahabali Shera. It's continuing a little bit of a rivalry that we saw build up in the World Title Series. O'Shea didn't seem to have a whole lot of fun as for Shera's fun and games. Who have you got in this match?
This seems very filler-esque to me. So if it became a squash match, I wouldn't be surprised. Mahabali Shera with the win. Again, I do see some good things out of Aiden O'Shea. I love his clothesline. I love the character in general. I think it fits him very well. But at this point, knowing how TNA has pushed Mahabali Shera and the fact that he really hasn't done anything to, negatively earn, a loss or a release of that push. I would say they continue to make Mahabali Shera better and bigger than Aiden here. So I'm going to go with Mahabali Shera.
That makes a lot of sense. On the other hand, I could definitely see this continue to be a feud with this match adding a little more fuel to the fire, a little more ammo in each guy's arsenal, a little more weight in their respective piles of baggage moving forward. And having Shera win a match here could definitely do that, but in their encounters, it's pretty much all been Shera. O'Shea's looked good, and he's gotten in some offense in their matches, but it's always been pretty definitively in Shera's favor. I think at some point, again, assuming that they do want this to continue to be a thing, O'Shea has got to do something to make him look like a credible threat to Shera, besides being about the same general size and his general demeanor. So, I'm gonna pick in O'Shea's favor.
Yeah, I mean, I like that idea. If the intention is to continue this feud between the two to help, each other grow as characters and grow as wrestlers in general, that would make a whole lot of sense, and I think it would be a good move. I just don't see TNA going in that direction. So, yeah. But it's a good thought.
Okay, match number 4 for one night only is a number 1 contenders knockouts gauntlet match. We've got Awesome Kong versus Velvet Sky versus Madison Rayne versus Jade versus Marty Bell versus Rebel. Who have you got among these 6 knockouts?
I would actually like to hear who you have first.
Kong definitely seems like the favorite here.
Yeah.
I think that goes without saying. There are definitely cases to be made for either Velvet or Madison. I could definitely see TNA giving Velvet a title shot just as extra incentive to stick around rather than going to join Bubba Ray over on the WWE side of things. Madison Rayne, I believe she is either tied for most knockout reigns or something along those lines. So TNA loves to give her title shots for whatever reason, I suppose. I am very strongly tempted to go with a dark horse here, that being Jade. She's gotten a title shot before, and it was kind of a throwaway in retrospect, but she definitely is capable of backing that up, of making it look like she deserves one. But the fact that she was overlooked for any position of prominence in the Dollhouse once it was clear that Taryn was no longer going to be around, I don't know. I think I will go with that pick. I think I'm gonna say Jade walks out.
I wanna I wanna commend you on that, because I too, from a fantasy booking standpoint, if I was going to book this match out of my own personal interest, I would love to see Jade get this title shot. And I would love to see Jade get the spotlight that I really think that she deserves. You know, I have seen what she's done on the indies. I have seen what she can really do as a wrestler. And I think out of all of these potential challengers, she by far is the best. But seeing how this happened on Impact, as far as the tag team match and Awesome Kong joining in as a teammate of the Dollhouse, and them bringing up that historical context of, you know, Awesome Kong does not like Gail Kim. Like, that seemed to be the main focal point as far as commentary goes. And I just want to touch on this real quickly. What TNA does very well is their commentary means something. Their commentary does tell the story. And, you know, from a reintroduction or a introduction to a new audience, what you would walk away from, what both Josh Matthews and the Pope said this week, was that the ongoing dispute or the ongoing major feud of this is Awesome Kong and Gail Kim. So that to me tells me that Awesome Kong wins. But I would love to see Jade win.
Yeah, like I said, that definitely seems like the straightforward pick, the one that makes the most sense. And I'm very much aware that I am picking with my heart rather than my head when I go with Jade. It's just, I can see an avenue where booking could go that way. It's a difficult avenue to find, and it's kind of a twisty, windy one. But, you know, precedent is there, and I could definitely see Kong being, I don't know, ordered as the enforcer to kind of sandbag herself in the competition in favor of somebody else in the Dollhouse. And, you know, if Jade doesn't get the job done this time, Kong decides, well, to hell with it, I'm going to do it myself. So, yeah, that's my line of thinking, but yeah, it absolutely makes a lot of sense for Kong to just win this and walk right into the title match. Okay, the main event of One Night Only Live, the triple threat match For the tag team titles, I don't think I mentioned that earlier, but it is for the tag team titles. We've got the Wolves as your champions versus Eli Drake and Jesse Goddard versus Galloway and Angle. This one definitely seems like a slam dunk. I don't see either of the two challenging teams sticking together long enough to make a serious run for the titles. So I think you and I would both be agreed that the Wolves are going to walk out as the winners.
Yeah, no argument there. I mean, like, again, I think the teaming of Eli Drake and Jesse Goddard is a good one, but it was definitely built up as a temporary thing. So was Galloway and Angle. That was built up as a temporary thing. So yeah, it's got to be the Wolves retain, and yeah.
So with that out of the way, all we've got left on the card, again, as it stands now, on Wednesday night before this Friday, Mike Bennett will have a match. His opponent is to be announced. Like a few other matches here on the card, seems to be a slam dunk as to who's going to win the match. So I think we'll make things a little bit more interesting and add a secondary prediction to the match. And that would be, who do you think faces Mike Bennett?
Well, let me drag out my answer real quick and just say that I do think that we will see another match on this card. Like EC3, I feel like has to compete, and I'm almost thinking that it'll be EC3 versus Matt Hardy, throwaway rematch for whatever reason.
That makes a lot of sense.
But as far as who faces Mike Bennett, I mean, just looking at who else is on the card, on the roster. I mean, you've got Mr. Anderson, you've got Robbie E, Rockstar Spud, Trevor Lee, Tigre Uno, and let's also maybe assume that there could be an X Division match added at the last minute too. You've got DJ Z, Crazy Steve, Chris Melendez. Man, I would say that if you had to make a choice as far as who would go up against Mike Bennett, I would probably want to put Rockstar Spud in that role, because Rockstar Spud is both a very much loved fan favorite. He is your face, and if you're gonna push Mike Bennett as in that heel role, I would definitely go with a Rockstar Spud, especially over anyone else that's on the roster, including like Mandrews and Micah or anything like that. Like, I wouldn't make it totally look like a squash match, which is what you would do if anyone else was in this position. But yeah, I would definitely put Rockstar Spud there.
Yeah, that's a very probable answer. That was a guy I was strongly considering as well. You're absolutely right. If you are pushing Mike Bennett as a heel, which it does look like they're doing, Spud is a perfect guy for this. He's got that. He looks like you would cast him as a jobber, but he's built up enough credibility in TNA over the last couple of years that you can expect a reasonably good fight out of him and a good match besides. I think I'm gonna predict that it'll be Trevor Lee, though. Like you mentioned, he's not booked in a match yet, and they seem to have made a point of advertising that Trevor Lee is going to be back on TNA, and not in a Global Force Wrestling capacity. Like, that angle seems to be dead and gone, but with Trevor Lee still having a presence, I think this would be a good way to avoid maybe potentially damaging an established member of the roster in the eyes of the fans, and still have one hell of a wrestling match.
Yeah, I'm with you there. If you want to show off Mike Bennett's ability to really wrestle and not have, your expected, like your almost expected squash match for his debut. A Trevor Lee would fit nicely. So I do like that idea. Knowing TNA though, I don't know if they would go in that direction. So I'm still sticking with Rockstar Spud. And another name that you might throw there, even though he's not officially on the roster as far as ImpactWrestling.com's roster, is Grado. That's another name that might fit there.
Yeah, I would enjoy the hell out of that match. I think he's very much in the same boat as Spud would be as far as your heel-face dynamic. He's definitely proven to be if not a crowd favorite, soon-to-be favorite. He definitely seemed to be growing on the Impact crowd. The only reason I'm not joining you in predicting Spud is that it seems like they want the full heel push with Bennett to come a little bit later. We definitely saw heelish overtones in Bennett's speech. Anybody that's claiming to be a wrestling god is probably going to be a heel. And he is definitely saying heel-ish things, like about Matt Hardy, call him old and washed up, and, with Maria's introduction about, are you trying to lose those 5 to 75 pounds, implying that the crowd is just a bunch of fat pieces of shit. But they're not going full blown with it. And I think they might be waiting a little bit to see how that works out and what pushes him to go there. And Trevor Lee, since the Global Force angle died off, they backed off on that heel aspect of him. So it is kind of a gray area, but you still have reason to dislike the guy if you are just a full on TNA fan, like rah, go Team TNA. There's a reason that you might want to cheer Bennett in this match against a guy like Trevor Lee. So, alright, as far as predictions go with One Night Only, we are betting on Beer Money and Tyrus walking away with victories. We are split on Aiden O'Shea and Mahabali Shira. Either Awesome Kong or Jade is going to walk out as the number one contender as far as we are concerned. And the Wolves will retain their title, and Mike Bennett will win his debut
Do we
match.
also want to throw in, an EC3 versus Matt Hardy rematch, as well as an X Division Championship match in this? I mean, because I don't know if it won't necessarily affect our overall scores because, EC3 will retain, in my opinion. Tigre Uno would retain the X Division Championship. Are you do you think otherwise in either situation?
No, I definitely think that in any rematch, it's going to be completely pro forma. Won't really technically matter in the grand scheme of things. I think it is pretty straightforward. EC3 would win a rematch. As far as an X Division title match, I think that would be kind of a Mike Bennett situation where we would be predicting who would challenge for that. And I don't think it would be as clear cut either because Tigre Uno's been kind of a non-starter as a champion. So if that match does happen, I think it'd be fairly likely that the title would change hands.
I don't know. I mean, because you put Tigre Uno versus DJZ, or put the title in a 4-way match, DJZ, Mandrews, Manic, and of those 4, I would still go with Tigre Uno. I mean, we are kind of in a reboot of sorts, and I would imagine they wouldn't want to make too many title changes right off the bat. And realistically, they wouldn't want to make any title changes if you look at our predictions.
That is true. On the other hand, given the chaotic nature of their debut on Pop and this sort of atmosphere of anything goes, anything could happen, Kong going from her established disdain for the Dollhouse and going to the Dollhouse to aid them against Gail Kim and the beautiful people. And we are seeing more division between EC3 and Tyrus. Established heel-face dynamics have flipped with James Storm returning and reforming Beer Money. So since the King of the Mountain title isn't set to change hands anytime soon in the match, and the other titles are either fairly concrete or they just haven't been gotten to yet, I think the X Division is a safe place to have a title change, especially if they're booking it as no limits, no not no rules, but anything goes, high flying luchador, strong style, anything you want, anything can happen. The X Division seems to be the prime spot for
So
that.
with that said, I mean, theoretically, if we did have an EC3 versus Matt Hardy rematch, which seems more likely than an X Division title match as far as an addition to the card, that's 7 matches. What if it's Mike Bennett versus Tigre Uno? Would you put the title on Mike Bennett?
Ooh, that would be awfully quick, but that would be one hell of a statement. I think I would.
I would too.
All right, so we're booking it. Mike Bennett, the new X Division champion in 2016.
Yeah, I would definitely I would definitely take that gamble. If you're going to build up that character as a person to save wrestling, the X Division has been pretty stagnant overall. I mean, you've had some good matches. You've really showcased how good DJZ can be when he goes up against Tigre Uno, Manic as well, but none of them stand out as full-fledged champions at this point. But, restarting that division with Mike Bennett as the Miracle to save wrestling, the X Division is a good place to start.
As true as it is, though, I wonder, the way they've rebranded James Storm, not necessarily rebranded so much as reverted to an older brand, but, the Revolution is no more. Folks are starting over with a new leaf. And, Manic was coming out very strong out of the Revolution with the face turn. Not necessarily with his performance in the World Title Series, but, otherwise, it looked like he had a lot going for him. I wonder if this would be a good place to showcase that.
I don't think so, because you really only had 1 week that they pushed Manic. As far as, I mean, you do have to consider the World Title Series as part of that, but because they taped that so early on in the year, he was still part of Revolution at that point. So there was that one time that he wrestled without the mask on, from a non-Revolution member standpoint. That was the time to really push him, and they couldn't, because of their taping structure. So I think that is something that you build on starting this year, but putting the title on him to do that, I don't think is necessary.
Fair point. Okay, well, I think that's about all we've got for the show. Garvin, you got any final thoughts?
Real quick, and I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on this, but, many people on Reddit and all over the internet were, almost calling for TNA to treat this network change as far as going from Destination America to Pop TV. A lot of people were calling for TNA to really reboot. And in some cases, almost rebrand, not go with TNA, but go with Impact Wrestling as the full official name. But, despite that call for a reboot, we really didn't see much of a change, at least in the main title pictures. We are exactly where we were 2, 3, 4 months ago as far as who those top contenders are. So, I would like to get your thought on that. Are you happy with where TNA is right now, or would you have rather them, done a full reboot where they're establishing new stars?
I really wish we had been in a position to start the new year with a full-on reboot, having already decided the champion last year, having already gotten the Matt Hardy EC3 nonsense out of our system, having wrapped up the World Title Series that turned out to be kind of a big disappointment in a lot of ways. But, since we ended the year knowing that wasn't going to be the case, I thought people calling for a full-on reboot were being unrealistic, just given the fact that you can't drop the main title storyline like it never happened and just start over. Not unless you were going to completely redo everything, rebuild the company, not just the program, but the company from the ground up. And that wasn't going to happen, so knowing the restrictions that we had going into this, I am largely happy with where we are right now. It definitely could have been a lot worse. We could have gotten Matt Hardy as champion again. We're getting EC3 as champion again, which is not necessarily ideal for me, but I think he's a very close second. My first would have been Drew Galloway. I think this would have been a great place for them to pull the trigger on him. And I definitely think that we are going to get that sometime this year. Probably, I think, before the year's half over. I think he's going to be the one to knock EC3 off his pedestal. But, as much as I would have enjoyed a full-on reboot, I think there have been enough changes to the presentation, to the production side, to just the nature of the show in general, that, I'm content with where it is right now.
I'm with you. I think overall, a lot of the calls for a reboot were from a section of the, overall wrestling community that doesn't see TNA as an established brand with established storylines. And yeah, because of where we were right before this, you needed to continue with where we left off. But moving forward, they do have that opportunity to push new names into that mix, like a Jesse Goddard's, like a Drew Galloway, like an Eli Drake. And I really hope that TNA takes advantage of the talent that they do have and do something cool with it.
Absolutely, I'm right there with you. If there aren't major changes being made as the year goes on and as stories progress, then that's a big problem. Closing things out. This podcast family, our family, the Fans Talk family, none of this could be happening without the support of you guys, our Squared Circle of Trust out there. If you're listening and you're not a part of that Squared Circle of Trust, but you'd like to get in on that action, you can help us keep things running and get a whole bunch of fun perks in the process. Just by heading over to fanstalktna.com, clicking on that big green button up at the top, and just seeing how you can help us out with just $1 a month. So, we're wrapping up the show here for Garvin and everyone in the live chat. This is Nick. We will be back next week, and I sure hope you will be as well. Take care, y'all.